Jesus freak here. Now, I saw a video elsewhere and I thought, I'd drop my own opinions here. And, well, that's all they are, is opinions. Now, I've mentioned that the founder of Welch's grape juice was a Methodist and a staunch teetotaler. And he basically was part of a group that tried to form a commune in New Jersey that pushed that idea. Now, at this time, we're talking mid 19th century. And there weren't exactly easy ways of getting unfermented grape juice back in those days. Some people actually propose the idea that when Jesus served wine, it couldn't have possibly had alcohol in it. Of course, I think that's highly unlikely. Given the reactions to the wine in Cana, it was probably some, knock your pants off spirits. But some people believe this. And to this day, at least in some Methodist groups, this is official stance of those churches. They don't use alcoholic wine. Now, in the Catholic Church, in the Church of Rome, their practice is, it's got to be fermented, and if you're alcoholic, just don't take the wine. And I think that raises a bit of an issue too, because it's not really full participation in communion if you don't take it in both kinds. Now, Thomas B. Welch and his son Charles, they started Welch's Juice Company to provide a non-alcoholic wine for communion. And I'm looking at this one website that says it best, unfermented grape juice was born in 1869 out of a passion to serve God by helping his church to give its communion the fruit of the vine instead of the cup of devils. Because, some people still think, oh, it's called spirits because there's evil spirits in the drink. It's not evil spirits, it's alcohol. But, some people have issues with it, either because once they start, they can't stop. And this is why I don't do gambling or whatever. But, they've had loved ones who had that problem or whatever. So they don't want to use wine in the ceremony. Some sects and such use water. And I've talked to people there, and the idea is, it's the thought that counts. And that's fine too. Although, it's not as ideal as using grape juice or actual wine. But my attitude is, whichever you use, it doesn't matter. My personal preference would be in the ceremony to use unfermented grape juice. But if someone wants to use actual wine, especially in churches where they practice intinction, which is they take the bread and dip it in the cup, which, that's not my preference either. But not as big a deal if they use actual wine there. But, if they. I can't find the verse I'm trying to think of. I mentioned, and on the other video, I mentioned Romans 14, but I don't think it's there. The verse I'm thinking of. Oh yeah, it's 14:21. It is good neither to eat flesh nor to drink wine nor anything whereby thy brother stumbleth or is offended or is made weak. But oh, that's up to personal convictions more than anything else. That's not the actual verse I was thinking of. I was thinking of the one where he said, "And if it offends my my brother, I'll never more eat it." But I gotta look that up. Anyway, my personal preference would be that I'd have the host made out of unbleached, unfermented. I'd start with unbleached whole wheat flour, and I would use just that and water and make the host out of that. And I'd use grape juice because it just isn't really right to use anything, I think, than grape. And the lack of fermentation, you know, or the lack of leavening thing in the host could be used with with that verse in First Corinthians about Christ or Passover, which they actually use in the Episcopal Church. They use the first part of the verse. Um, they'll say, "Christ our Passover sacrificed for us, therefore let us keep the feast." Um, I personally would use grape juice, but again, that's not moral compunction or anything, just personal preference. Jesus freak out.